The Cardinals open up their final regular season home series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll preview what's in store for the team this weekend and take a look at the latest developments in the playoff picture. We've got a Mailbag Friday today where we answer some of your questions from this week. And which Cardinals player was surprising fans at a fast food restaurant recently? You'll find out on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinal fans. I'm JD Hafford. I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I am your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter at JD Sports Radio. Follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast. Also on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and comment so you can interact with us. Hit that notification button so you're aware of when we drop new videos for you. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so first and foremost, I want to say apologies for it being such a late podcast on this Friday. Normally, we have this out in the morning for everybody, but today we had other jobs that we had to do, so I've been working hard all day long. So finally, got a chance to sit down and do the podcast with you guys here today. So I appreciate your patience. The Cardinals are in a really good or really odd situation, depending on how you look at things. First, let's start with the good part. They're in the playoffs, right? They're going to be the number 3 seed after winning the NL Central. They are currently waiting on other teams to figure out who it is that they're going to be playing. You got a huge series in Atlanta this weekend between the Braves and the Mets as they continue to battle each other for that NL East title. Now, going into Friday, the Mets were 1 game up on the Braves. Both teams have already clinched a spot in the playoffs, but one team will end up winning the East and then also grab the number 2 seed in the National League, which means that they will also get that coveted first-round bye. Whoever finishes second will then fall to the number 4 seed. They'll have to face the number 5 seed in a 3-game series in either Atlanta or New York, whoever it is. And pretty much same thing like the Cardinals will have to do. The Cardinals will face the number 6 seed in a 3-game series. All of those games are going to be played at Busch Stadium. Whoever it is, Atlanta or New York, they'll host all 3 games of that series. Now, they've got a pretty big playoff atmosphere going on at Truist Park this weekend. You've got great pitching matchups for that series too. Friday's pitching matchup, it's a doozy. Jacob deGrom against Max Fried. That's solid stuff right there. Saturday, Max Scherzer and Kyle Wright. Amazing pitching matchup there. Then on Sunday, Chris Bassett against Charlie Morton. Another solid one. I saw the Braves also have signed Charlie Morton. They picked up like his $20 million extension, I think it was. And also are extending that or something, but he's going to be back in the fold with the Braves moving forward. That's fun stuff, okay? That's going to be entertaining to watch. In fact, I might watch more of those games than I do the Cardinals this weekend, and I'll explain that to you here in just a minute. Now, as far as the number 6 seed goes, like who the Cardinals are going to play, you currently have the Braves at number 4, then the Padres at number 5, the Phillies are at number 6, but Philly, they've been struggling a lot recently, so the Brewers are right behind them, trying to get that number 6 spot. The Phillies are facing the Nationals this weekend while the Brewers take on the Marlins. The Padres, they haven't clinched anything yet. They're facing the Dodgers this weekend, who have already snagged the number 1 seed in the National League. Then over the American League, you've got the Astros, the Yankees, and the Guardians. They've won their divisions already. So currently you've got the Blue Jays as the number 4 seed in the American League, but they've already clinched a spot, so they're in. Then it's the Mariners at number 5 with a half-game lead over the Rays coming into Friday. And in that number 6 spot, as I mentioned, you've got the Rays there, but Baltimore still hanging on for dear life. They're 5 games back, and they have to go up against Aaron Judge and the Yankees this weekend. So the Rays, they got to play Houston. Houston's still trying to secure the number 1 overall seed in the American League. The Rays are trying to jump Seattle into that number 5 spot. The Mariners are at home against Oakland this weekend. So it's just chaos. And this is what Major League Baseball wanted. And that's fine with me. I love this. I think it's fantastic that here we are on September 30th, and we've got all these different scenarios going on that can still happen and still have to be played out over the final weekend and week of the series or of the season. I think it's fantastic stuff. But after you go through all of this, you look at all the teams and you're like, wait a minute. The Cardinals are the only team who is playing meaningless games this weekend against the Pirates, who aren't playing for anything but pride. Everybody else has something to gain or lose in their games. I mean, the Pirates aren't anywhere near the playoffs, so they don't have to worry about winning or losing against them. So is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? On one hand, you can rest anybody you want for as long as you want to end the season. All right, there's one aspect of it. They've already been doing that with Yachty, where he's been played sparingly, if you will, over the last week or so, which is fine because you want September Yachty refreshed and ready to go in October. You don't have to stretch out your starters much if you don't want to. You don't want to not pitch them because you don't want them to, lose the feel of their pitchers. But at the same time, they don't have to go 7 innings. If one of them's throwing a fantastic game, they don't have to go to that 7th inning. You don't have to do that. You can pull them out in the 5th. It's cool. And if you lose, who cares? It's not affecting your bottom line at all. You can't lose ground anymore as the Cardinals. You're in that number 3 spot. There's nowhere for you to go. On the other hand, you don't want to lose your edge as a ball player. You don't want to get lazy. You don't want to get complacent. It's not as if the Cardinals were, lighting it up hitting-wise, coming into this situation, okay? They've been struggling. Some of these guys are still trying to get out of the funk that the offense has been in for most of September. So those kind of guys will likely need to keep playing so they can get things right before the playoffs start on October the 7th. Goldschmidt still working through some stuff. Arenado has not had a huge September. Guys like Dickerson, who was 0 for 27 or something like that at one point in this last week. Pitching wise, you've got Michaelis and Quintana. They appear to be ready to roll. They've looked great. But Flaherty still trying to come back from his injury, so he needs to work. Wainwright still trying to figure out this dead arm stuff. And Montgomery's been knocked around a bit in his last few outings and has lost his last 3 starts after the team went undefeated in his first 7 starts with them when they got him from the Yankees. Like he was almost unhittable, remember? And now, kind of hittable. At home against Milwaukee, September 13th, the Brewers got him for 6 runs on 7 hits in 5 innings. The Reds got him for 3 runs on 7 hits in 5 innings and a 3-0 loss on the 18th. Now, granted, 3 runs, not bad. You'll take that. Struck out 9 that game. He looked fine, but the team still lost. Then his last outing against the Dodgers, again, it's the Dodgers, who are the best team in baseball, got roughed up for 6 runs on 7 hits in just 4 innings. So Montgomery's got some work to do to get his edge back. He's kind of lost that here in September. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Cardinals and what Ollie Marmol does this weekend not just this weekend, but the final 6 games against the Pirates. Do they go full steam ahead and try and win at all costs like you normally would in a playoff push, just so you can kind of stay the course and get that winning momentum back as they begin the playoffs? Or do they take the cautious approach? They play it safe, try not to get anyone hurt, just kind of ease their way into the playoffs and be ready to go. Personally, I'd like to see them go all in. I want to see them play hard. I want their top lineup in each night. But of course, there is that risk factor. It's like preseason games in the NFL. Some teams don't play any of their starters in the preseason. They just don't do it because they don't want somebody to get hurt and screw up what's going to happen in the regular season. And it risks the team coming out rusty and cold in weeks 1 and 2. That's happened to some teams this year, while others played their guys some and just looked more prepared as the season began. Friday, tonight, you've got Flaherty on the mound against former Cardinal Johan Oviedo. Saturday, it's Montgomery against Luis Ortiz. And Sunday, Wainwright against Contreras. Now, all 3 of these starters are working on stuff. So I hope they have the right guys behind them to help them succeed. See what I'm getting at here? Like, I don't want the B squad behind them as they're trying to get right, where they're not playing as good defensively. They're not scoring, and they're going to, you're going to lose because you can't hit. I don't want to see that. I realize you might still be trying to figure out what the bench looks like, so you'll want to see guys like Yepez and DeLuzio play a little more. But how much do Arenado, Edman, and Goldie play over the next 6 games? Carlson, he still needs at-bats after his injury. He's still coming back. Newt, I'm not worried about. Newt's got more energy than the Energizer Bunny. Like, I'm not worried about him whatsoever. Dickerson, I mentioned him a few minutes ago, slumped. So you need him to break out and get right again. So that's kind of the dilemma where the Cardinals are right now. And you also don't want to go into the playoffs with that losing taste in your mouth. Like, you want to go in riding high, like a winner on a nice winning streak heading into the playoffs. You want to feel good about yourself as the playoffs begin. So that's kind of the dilemma where they're at. And we'll see what course they take. I'd like to see them play hard and go for it all, but I realize there's a risk there, injury-wise. So at the same time, you don't want to see that happen either. So I'm glad I'm not in charge and I don't have to make those decisions. Mailbag Friday, that's a decision that I had to make. When are we going to do the mailbag? We've been doing it on Fridays, and I got that for you next. We'll answer your questions next here on Locked On Cardinals. But first, I'd like to talk to you guys about BetOnline. Now, we know BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Yeah, I hope you've realized this by now. We've been talking about it for quite a long time. It's an amazing website, betonline.net. You got to go check it out if you haven't already. You can find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events. That includes Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, golf. NFL Week 4 got underway last night with the Bengals defeating the Dolphins to knock them from the unbeaten ranks, which gave me some pleasure as a guy that roots for is my AFC team. It is the Cincinnati Bengals. And my older brother, Chad, huge Dolphins fan, so it was kind of nice to be able to rub that in his face a little bit. You only got one undefeated team left in the league, the Philadelphia Eagles at 3-0. Who saw that coming, right? There are 2 winless teams still left. The Houston Texans are 0-2-1, while the Las Vegas Raiders 0-3. Bit of a shocker after making the trade for Devontae Adams in the offseason. This week, the Buffalo versus Baltimore game is one that I'm eyeing up. Should be a good one. Over-unders at 51. You got the Vikings and the Saints. They're in London. Remember that, by the way. You've got the London game on Sunday, so that's an early morning start. The Saints might have to start Andy Dalton. Vikings favored by just 3 right now. Kind of like the Vikings in that one. My Packers are 9-point favorites at home against the Patriots, who are going to be starting Brian Hoyer at quarterback over the injured Mac Jones who got hurt last week, busted up his ankle. So this is where you make some money. This is where you can have more fun with the NFL season. Head to betonline.net, or you can use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. It is mailbag time, which is one of my favorite things that we do here on Locked On Cardinals, because I get to answer some of the questions that you guys have, which is there's plenty of them. They come in a lot. You guys get to play interviewer. So you get your questions to me by either writing them in the comments on YouTube, or you can send them to me on Twitter. You can DM me if you don't want your question to be out there for everybody to see in the Twitterverse. Fine by me. I don't care. I'll accept it. It's no big deal. But it's pretty much anything you guys want to talk about. You guys want to talk about the Cardinals, obviously, other sports, pretty much anything goes. We'll talk food. I've got movie questions this time, so I'm excited to get into that. If you haven't noticed, like in the last episode, and of course, actually, I don't even have my pumpkin out. Hold on, there we go. Here's my pumpkin. Usually it's sitting up here. Hold on, let's put it. There you go. I had it down earlier. I got scooted over now, huh? There. Now you can see it better on YouTube. There you go. There's my pumpkin. But I'm a big Halloween fan. So somebody asked me a movie question for Halloween. So I'm like, ooh, let's get into that one. But first, let's start with some sports ones. Nate from the 314 asks, who are your top 3 starters for the playoffs? I got Michaelis, Quintana, and probably Wainwright penciled in right now. But this weekend, obviously, is huge for Waino, Flaherty, Montgomery, Monty, and this is likely going to be their final starts of the regular season. So depending on who you play, maybe you have Quintana and Montgomery start against someone who doesn't hit lefties as well, like the Brewers. The Brewers are not good against the left-handers. They're one of the worst hitting teams against left-handers in the National League this year and in all of baseball, to be honest with you. While the Phillies and the Padres, they hit lefties pretty good. So maybe if you have to face them, you go Michaelis, Waino, and Quintana against them instead. I mean, I just think you have to have Quintana in there. He needs to be in there. He's been outstanding since coming to the team, and there's no reason why you wouldn't pitch him or why you would choose, at this point, Montgomery over Quintana. There's just no reason to do that. Matt P. asks, who do you think will be the biggest surprise contributor in the postseason? I'm going for Dylan Carlson. He's my pick. I talked about that earlier this week, that him in center field, switch hitter, could be huge in the playoffs, and hopefully it can be kind of like a breakout party for Dylan Carlson. Last year, we thought it would happen this season, because last year he hit 266, 18 home runs, 65 RBIs. You're like, this is going to be a future superstar. And the Cardinals think that way. When the Juan Soto trade talks were going around and swirling, people were like, Dylan Carlson's going to be the one that they're going to want, right? And the Cardinals were like, we are not trading you, Dylan. We want you on this team. And you were hoping you would get like he had last year. You were hoping to hit around 270, 20, 25 home runs, 80, 90 RBIs. He had the injury, but even before he hurt his thumb, 237, 8 home runs. It's not what you expected out of Dylan Carlson this year. Same can be said for Tyler O'Neill. He's had a down year because of injuries that kept him from ever turning the corner. It seemed like anytime O'Neill was starting to get things figured out, bang, hamstring injury or a shoulder or something would happen to him, and he'd be out of commission. If I had to pick a rookie, I think the easy choice would be Brendan Donovan. I don't think Donovan's really a surprise anymore, at least not to us as Cardinal fans. Like, we know Brendan Donovan's been solid all year. We know he's good. But I don't know if Juan Yepez will see enough at-bats to make a huge difference in the playoffs. So I guess Donovan would be my surprise rookie call that people nationally will notice. Like when you hear the telecast, when they start this in October, they're going to talk about these players. They're going, Brendan Donovan, look at this guy's number. They're going to do that. We know he's been good all year, but other people are going to finally notice him. So I think that'll be cool and well-deserved. Donovan's had a heck of a year. Eric H. asks, why is Paul DeJong under consideration for a playoff roster spot? He is literally a 0 at the plate, and his defensive ability at shortstop is above average, but not good enough to compensate for his non-existent bat. Another thing that I've brought up before earlier in the week, Paul DeJong will be on this playoff roster. And the reason why is because he's a steady middle infielder, and the Cardinals just don't have any other ones. They just don't. Not sure if Gorman's even being considered after his late season struggles. But you've seen how Ollie's used DeJong in September. He uses him as a defensive replacement late in games. They'll move Tommy Edman over to second base after they've pinch hit or pinch ran for Donovan, and they bring in DeJong. And in heaven forbid, if something were to happen to Tommy or Donovan, you'd need him to start. And defensively, you feel okay about that. You feel good about Paul DeJong at shortstop. Like, I don't have any worries with that. Hitting is clearly a problem for this guy. Hopefully you're not in a spot where you need him to take any at-bats whatsoever, because as who is this guy? Eric pointed out, he's been pretty much 0 at the plate. He had like that 1 week after he got called back up where we were like, all right, Paul DeJong can hit again. And then he just went, splat, and has not been good since. Scotty H. asks, if you were to catch a famous home run ball, what would you do with it? Now, this one's a problem for me because there's two sides of me that thinks about this. Business side, I work in an industry in radio and in sports media that got ravaged when COVID hit. I worked through 90% of the pandemic only to get let go from the job I had for over 10 years with a particular radio station due to budget cuts. Like, it sucked, man. They kept me on through the pandemic where I was the only one going to work still. I was a part of a morning show, and I was still going to work. Everybody else had to stay home. We didn't want people in a room together, blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as things started to clear up and they start bringing people back, they fire me because of budget cuts. Sucks, man. That's not cool. So, I mean, companies are still trying to get back on track following this pandemic. I mean, the company I work for now, not the same that I used to, is still cutting people. all over the country. So it's hard for me to not keep the ball, sell it, and then provide for my family. On the other hand, I've got the baseball guy side of me who has this heart of gold, and it says I should give it back to the person who hit the home run. And, I get some cool stuff in return. You get some fun items. They usually do bats and jerseys or helmets, whatever you're into, gloves. I don't know, whatever you would want. Cleats. You want something signed, like the cleat signed, whatever. But as of right now, I think I'd have to be the selfish guy and sell it. My wife likes expensive things. She just came in here a little bit ago and was like, I want this jacket. Can I get this jacket? Sure. Let's get you the jacket. But the mortgage isn't going to pay itself. So Jerry Maguire style, show me the money. Sean C. asks, saw your Halloween decorations this week. Cool stuff. What's your favorite scary movie? I don't know if he did it in the ghost face voice. What's your favorite scary movie? But I love that movie. Scream's a really good one, but very Ghostface of a way to word this question. My favorite scary movie, the original Halloween. Michael Myers, that was my boogeyman growing up. If I had bad dreams, it was always that dude chasing me with his white face. And then as I got older, I began to gravitate towards him as like my favorite slasher guy. You've got the big guys, Freddy, Jason. They used to scare the hell out of me as well as a kid. Never got into like the Hellraiser Pinhead stuff. That really wasn't my cup of tea. Anything super gory, especially as a kid, I didn't like. As I got older, now I see the fun in it. I want to see the cool murder scenes and stuff. Because you get a kick out of it. You're like, yeah, that was cool. It's all fake, right? I did get to interview Robert Englund, who played Freddy, and Kane Hodder, who played Jason, which was pretty awesome. Robert was just the best. I mean, both of them were great guys, but Robert was really, really cool for me because he actually did some of the Freddy voice when it was a phone interview. I didn't get to meet him in person, but he did the Freddy voice on the phone with me, which was super awesome, which is really wild to hear the Freddy Krueger on the other line talking to you. That's pretty awesome. As I mentioned, I love the original Scream sequels, original Halloween and Halloween 2. The rest after that kind of, I've never even seen the third one, the Season of the Witch. I've never even watched that one. But I saw the 4, the 5, 6 was awful. The newest versions of Halloween, I like those a lot. Especially the very first one that they released. I thought that was really cool. The Rob Zombie ones, it's too weird for me, man. All it is just like who can gross the other person out. Like I don't get into the Rob Zombie stuff, any of his movies. Not really my thing. But like these newest versions of Halloween, the first one, really, really good. Second one was okay. I liked it more than a lot of people did. Some people were down on it. But they got the new one coming out, Halloween Ends, which comes out on October 14th. So I'm excited about that one, obviously. I'm not going to watch it on Peacock because it's going to be available online. You can stream it right away if you have Peacock, but not going to do that. I go to the movie theaters to watch my movies, okay? Pandemic, schmandemic. I'm done with it. I go to the movie theaters now. I love it there. So I'm going to go check that one out for sure. All right. That's enough for the mailbag. We're running out of time here. So next up, I want to tell you guys which Cardinals player, I should say, not players, but one player in particular was surprising people at a fast food joint this week. You'll find out who it was next on Locked On Cardinals. All right. Final segment on this Friday. Yesterday afternoon, customers at the ChickfilA on Manchester Road in Des Peres in St. Louis got a surprise when the 6'7" future Cardinal Hall of Famer Adam Wainwright was there greeting and having conversations in the drive-thru line with people. What was Adam Wainwright doing there? Well, according to Fox 2, the surprise appearance comes on behalf of a charitable effort for his Big League Impact Foundation. When people placed a mobile order on the ChickfilA app on Thursday, 1/4 of all sales went to Big League Impact. Additionally, ChickfilA presented a $10,000 check for money it previously raised for Big League Impact. So it was for a good cause, but how wild is that? You're pulling up the Chick-fil-A, you're like, all right, I guess I'm going to get some of these waffle fries, Chick-fil-A sent. Oh my gosh, there's Adam Wainwright. And 6'7" of Adam Wainwright standing under the canopy there at Chick-fil-A. Probably a pretty cool sight. And Wayno's always been great with this kind of stuff. A lot of guys on the team are really good about it. Goldie, Albert, Yachty. Like you, that's why they were all Roberto Clemente Award winners for how good they've been with charities over the years. Cardinals do a good job with all that stuff. So the players. So just another reason. As if you needed another reason to root for Adam Wainwright. There you go. He's a very charitable guy and just a nice guy all around. So I'm glad we have him, and I'm glad we root for him and the Cardinals this weekend. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. Now make your second listen, the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. As always, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Twitter at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. You are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I'll see you next time right here on Locked On Cardinals. Have a great weekend.